Welcome back, everybody, to On Pit Row. Steve Ronkwitz and Charlie Turner with you live from the original Gino's Pizza and Grill. Very happy to have on our bench racing hotline from FoxSports.com, Lee Spencer joins us. Hi, Lee. How are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
Hey, we are terrific. All kinds of stuff that kind of went on this past week. I mean, made for a very interesting week as we head towards Homestead. I'm going to not ask you a question. What's the most important thing in your mind that's kind of gone on and where we're at this week as we head towards Homestead?
Well, I would have to think that watching the 48 stumble, I mean, that's generally something that group doesn't do. And, it almost goes to prove that maybe they are not bulletproof. They didn't have a good practice at Phoenix. They didn't have a good qualifying effort at Phoenix, and they certainly didn't have a good race at Phoenix. So I think when everything was said and done, you saw that they were vulnerable, and Penske Racing and Brad Keselowski, that whole organization was there to take advantage of it.
Well, obviously one of the huge stories of the weekend, of course, was the fight with the two drivers, with the 24 team and with Kurt Boyer. So where do you stand on this whole thing? There's so many different viewpoints on it, and I guess I'll ask you this way. First of all, did you think that the ruling that NASCAR came down with yesterday as far as the fines, no suspensions, was the way to go on this thing, $100,000 out of the pocket of Jeffy?
I always wonder where that money goes. The other guys, I mean, quite frankly, the decision that baffled me the most was Brad Keselowski.
Yeah.
Certainly after, his I don't have a nice way to put it because he was sitting 6 feet from me at the time, and he was certainly jacked up. He was pretty upset because if you look at the replay, you can see the two-car passing just in the distance. The two-car could have very easily been caught up in that.
Right.
And I'll tell you something else. Let's go back to a previous caution. It might have been maybe two before that. Roger Penske himself came over the radio and said, be careful of the 24. Now, he's just saying that, you have to hedge your bets, right? Because 24, he's still the owner of the 48 car. We have a tendency to forget that at times, but right. Jeff Gordon is listed technically as the owner of that car. So I think when you take everything into perspective, Brad comes in there, he's fired up, he's cussing up a blue streak because, the emotions of it all. Here's a kid who's seen his family sacrifice so much over the years just to put a race car on the track on the weekends, from his grandfather to his father, his uncle. They've all been, this is really a family sport for them. So to see everything that he's worked his entire life for almost go up in smoke in those moments, and not to mention that, the goofy stuff that happened with Danica Patrick and them not calling a caution on that after she and Jeff Burton made contact, and she's limping around to the start-finish line. The leaders are coming to the finish. They see smoke. They all check up. He got pancaked on the right side of his car by Kurt Busch. He's lucky he got through there. I mean, he, threaded the needle to a large degree. I mean, yes, there was contact with Kurt Busch, but he really got through there fairly unscathed and finished the race. It could have, there's so many times when luck was just happened to be on his side. It was like, Jimmy Johnson handed over the golden horseshoe, and Brad Keselowski survived. And, there was just a ton of goofy stuff. And, Brad didn't take any pleasure in winning that way because he knows very, very possibly he could be in Jimmy's seat come Sunday at Homestead.
Do you think the $25,000 fine to Keselowski was for the rant more so than the tweeting, and it was just more convenient to say that it was for the tweeting?
I'm baffled by it. I mean, I don't get it. I still much stuff that you can't have traction control on an iPhone. There are certain, it's got computer chips. Technology is a quick race right now. There's a possibility of all types of fuel mapping that can go on control. And an iPhone would be the perfect vehicle to set things up like that. Now, let's put all conspiracy theory aside and just say, here we have a situation where if they start throwing points around it, and they did it with Dale Jr. at Talladega. Remember, Dale Jr. had the points lead for, until NASCAR dropped the bomb on his profanity at Talladega. But, they've been known to take points away before. But as close as this championship is right now, I would have been furious if that was the kind of situation where they said, okay, we have to, put points down on Brad Keselowski, because it would have changed the outcome of everything. And I think they looked at it, they reviewed it, and they know that, it was his emotions more than anything. But, you could say that for Boyer. I've never seen Clint Boyer run that fast in my life. And, that's pretty much what Dan Hamlin said. He didn't know Boyer had it. Boyer jokes all the time about not working out and uses his hero, Tony Stewart, as an excuse. He said, Smoke wins championships and he doesn't work out. Why should I? But I will tell you, that sprint of Boyer from the car to the 24-miler was pretty impressive on Sunday.
But he said after that he thought he might have pulled a hammy, so I don't know whether that was true or not. But, he had a pretty good sprint going there, and I think a lot of people were surprised by his at least short burst of athleticism anyhow. Speaking of Tony Stewart, another bomb that was dropped this week, of course, Kevin Harvick looks like he will be running with Tony Stewart in 2014. Was this just a case of I remember Coach Daly for the Detroit Pistons at one time when he decided he was going to leave the Pistons. He said, he says, I love these guys and everything, but it's time to leave because they've just stopped listening to me. And I get somewhat of that same feeling when you look at these guys, Matt Kenseth moving along, and now maybe Kevin Harvick. Maybe was it just time for him to have a change of scenery?
Well, I will say this. From a character standpoint, Kevin Harvick and Matt Kenseth are two entirely different people. I have a ton of respect for Matt Kenseth. Matt Kenseth has always been a team player. He's always been, he's just a really stand-up guy, and he has been extremely loyal to Jack Roush over the years. He knows who gave him a start in business, and he's respected that. Matt Kenseth didn't get along with the front office. I would say in the past, everything has been done, Matt's pretty much, he's had his way there. And, a lot of that can stem from the fact that Robbie Reiser, who brought him into the sport, who turned over his ride to him in the Nationwide Series, who he raced against in Wisconsin, with Robbie in the position he is as competition director, he's always been able to look out for his buddy Matt. When the front office changed and Jeff Smith retired and they brought in new people, Matt didn't feel that same kind of love. And after all the fuss that was made over Carl last year, Matt was, athletes have egos, and certainly Kenseth is no exception, but with all the fuss being made over Carl, it was May, and nobody had talked to Matt about his contract for next year, and he was like, what am I, chopped liver? And, just realize that, hey, if they're not even going to give me the kind of respect, and I just won a second Daytona 500 for Roush Fenway Racing, maybe it's time for me to go on. The difference between he and Harvick is the fact that Kenseth has won a championship. Roush did get him in a championship ride, and he was able to pull it off. He has won Daytona 500, so they both have. But, Matt's 5 years older than Kevin. Kevin's wondering if the grass is indeed greener out there, and he wants to find out. Another, difference I would say is Kevin Harvick has really run the ship over at Childress for a long, long time. When he wanted to get out of the KHI deal, Richard was there. He picked it up. Harvick, there's been, question as to where his loyalty is, whether or not he thinks that he's getting enough attention with the two Dillon boys coming, with his name not being Dillon or Childers. What is his future going to look like? And after coming so close to winning two championships in 2010 and 2011, finishing third both times and not getting the job done when they were so close, I think he just questioned whether or not this was an organization that could ever give him a title in the Cup Series. So there's a lot more to that meets the eye. And, before this announcement came, and, we've been working on this story, I won't say for this specific story, but I mean, we've heard rumblings of him going over to Stewart Haas Racing for 2 months now, and as of Kansas, Michael Waltrip Racing has put a contract on the table for Harvick, and so, that was kind of like why, we backed off a little bit, because we weren't quite sure who was going to win the bidding war. And, when it all came down to it, the money that Rob Kaufman, who's, co-owner over at Michael Waltrip Racing, he thought that Harvick thought he'd have a more attractive package coming from Stewart Haas.
Do you expect that Budweiser sponsorship, will that follow him along with him over to Stewart Haas?
I think that's what they're all betting on, and, RC's already doing negotiations for that, so I think we'll have to wait and see.
Lee, as always, we appreciate the time that you spend with us throughout the whole season. We really do appreciate that, and your insights and everything. Enjoy the last week of the year, and then go have some fun playing golf.
Boy, you know me all too well, though.
Absolutely. That's what you got to do. Lee, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again.
Thanks a ton.
Absolutely. That is Lee Spencer. This is On Pit Road. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, this is Regan Smith.
This is Lee Spencer.
This is Chad McCummings.